Good evening. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's meeting. This is the 11th meeting of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs. We'll start our meeting with invocation by Mr. Brian Epperson and a Pledge of Allegiance by Director Williams. Thank you. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity to gather here this evening, and we just want to humble ourselves in front of you, God, and just we want to ask for your forgiveness in our lives, God, and we just are thankful for what Jesus did on the cross and how we can find forgiveness of our sins in Him. And God, I just want to ask right now for your blessing. God, would you show your approval on our efforts, and would you show your approval on the decisions that we make to lead and guide this city, Father God. Give us wisdom. God, we know that you are the God of wisdom. Teach us, God, the brevity of life. Show us how short this life really is and how our decisions make an impact on generations to come, God. And God, we know that your wisdom, according to your word in James chapter 3, verse 17, it says that your word, your wisdom is first off pure. It's peacefully. It's lovely, God. And it is gentle at all times. It yields to others, God, and it's merciful. God, and we just ask for your protection this evening, God, and a protection over each and every one of our lives, God. And we give our lives to you. And we know that it says in your word in Isaiah that you will always be with us and you'll never leave us nor forsake us. So we place our lives in your hand. We place this city in your hand. This city belongs to you, Jesus. To you, Jesus, this city belongs. This state belongs to you. And we yield our lives, we yield our decision making to you, and we just ask that you would come and bless it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Man. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Davidson. Jones.
Here.
Clark. Williams.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda or items on the consent agenda that you'd like to have moved to new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move for approval of the agenda.
Approval by Director Williams, seconded by
At second, Mayor.
Director Jones. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Now we'll consider the approval of the minutes of the regularly held meeting on June 5th, 2018. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So move.
Motion by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Foley. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. I'd like to recognize State Representative Les Warren tonight. Thank you very much for coming out. Appreciate you and all that you do. Any other guests to be recognized by directors? I know we have some names that will be called out shortly, but we'll proceed. Mr. Bill Burrows, Interim City Manager report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of notes. The City of Hot Springs and the Hot Springs Housing Authority are working together to prepare a fair housing study that looks at housing choice and access to community resources. This study will examine how residents decide where to live, what neighborhoods offer the most opportunity, and other fair and affordable housing issues in Hot Springs. The public is invited to attend a workshop at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, June 28th at the Hot Springs Transportation Depot. That's at 100 Broadway Terrace. Children are welcome and refreshments will be served. Secondly, Hot Springs Intercity Transit has drafted a proposed passenger code of conduct and would like the public to offer comments and suggestions. The draft is available for review on Intercity Transit's page on the city's website at cityhs.net. Hard copies are also available on request by calling 321-2020. Public comments will be received until Thursday, July 12th. The purpose of the Passenger Code of Conduct is provide a safe, secure, and comfortable transit ride for Hot Springs intracity transit users. Once adopted, that document will be published for public reference. A couple of other items, Mayor. Mr. and Miss Jim Stratton had carefully made advanced travel plans to see their son's closing ceremonies at Camp Ozark in Mount Ida. They plan to fly to Mount Ida from Hot Springs Memorial Field, but a flat tire in the landing gear with slim chances of quick repair on a Saturday morning all but dashed their plans to join their son. Thanks to quick thinking airport staffers, Ruthie Murphy and Dan Smith, who arranged for quick and inexpensive repairs, the Strattons made it to Camp Ozark in time. They wrote a note that I felt it was important to share, and we love getting these kind of comments. We left Hot Springs Airport with full hearts and smiles on our faces, wrote Mr. Stratton in his note of thanks. I spent 25 years as an Air Force officer and had the privilege of commanding some of America's best young men and women, so I'm familiar with concepts of service and commitment to something other than self. Aaron and I were fortunate enough to experience all of that with everyone we met at Hot Springs, and just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate their efforts and what they probably think is a small gesture. I assure you they had a large impact on our lives, and we can't thank them enough. So great note. We appreciate all the staff at the Hot Springs Airport. Lastly, but never last, this will be the last board meeting prior to Gene Wallace's retirement. So I wanted to make the board aware and our public aware that Gene will have a retirement party June the 29th here in the board chambers, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. You know, Jean has given so much of her professional and personal life over those 29 years to make our city a much better place to live. From the Greenway Trail to recreational programs, holiday lights, hanging baskets, and all the parks that we enjoy. Jean leaves a legacy of better quality of life, amenities for generations to enjoy for years to come. It's been a pleasure to work with Jean. I can speak for all of our department heads. She's had a great working relationship with everyone she's come in contact with, and we just wish her the best and as much joy as she could possibly have in her retirement. So if you're here on June 29th or have an opportunity, please stop by between 11 and 2. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. At this time, we'll entertain announcements from directors for upcoming events. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to invite everyone to a community meeting I'm hosting in District 5 at the center at Forest Lakes, 305 Forest Lakes Boulevard, next Monday, June 25th at 4:30 p.m. Sheriff Mike McCormick will be speaking, and he will be taking questions. And we helped with the sales tax generated for construction of a new jail, and they have been in the new jail now for some time. So what's the current status? What is the jail full? What programs have recently been introduced at the jail? This is going to be a very informative meeting. Also, the Captain Belinda Cosgrove, who is over a lot of the programs with volunteers in the jail service, will be there. And she was recently named the American Jail Association's National Correctional Supervisor of the Year. So some of the programs are very innovative, but they work with volunteers from the community, so she'd be interested in anyone willing to volunteer. And again, invite you Monday at 4:30 at the center at 305 Forest Lakes Boulevard, and there will also be refreshments. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Any other announcements? Director Jones.
Yes, I have two. One is an announcement, and one is just a moving forward from Phoebe. She is still asking for donations to work on the John Lee Webb House, and if you haven't been by there, it's come a long way. They're going to start doing some work either the middle of August or the 1st of September. when the grant comes through. And then I have another one on behalf of the Webb Center Board of Directors. We're having a dedication service honoring William Bill Watkins, Big Lou, on Saturday, July 21st. You hear from me again about this. In honor of the dedication for the center, we will be honoring him by naming the community room the Bill Watkins Room. So if you can, please join us on July 21st at 6 p.m. At 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. to honor him and to rename the room the Bill Watkins Room. Thank
Very
you,
good.
Mayor.
Thank you. I have one announcement on the 4th of July. The Friends of the Maurice Bathhouse is having a cookout on the Arlington lawn from 10:30 to 4. And they've recruited 4, well, maybe 3 of the better chefs in town. I have a shift. I don't consider myself one of those 3. I'm the 4th. So you check the schedule and make sure you come when somebody else is at the grill. But Matt Fuller of 51 Prime or 501 Prime, Mike Dampier at the Ohio Club, and Mike Petty and myself. So we'll be putting the aprons on, getting around the grill, and if you see one of those 3 at the grill, run up fast. So thank you.
July.
And all the proceeds of that go and help the restoration of the Maurice. July 4th.
Okay.
That's a Wednesday. By itself, standing there by itself. Arlington Lawn, 10:30 to 4. If there's any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. These items are of routine nature and do not merit discussion, though I will make some announcements following the approval of the consent agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Director Williams made the motion.
Thank you.
Seconded by Director Garcia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The consent agenda is approved. And within the consent agenda, we had a number of items. We want to recognize those individuals who gave of themselves to assume positions within various commissions and committees of the City of Hot Springs. And we have a number of them out here in the audience tonight. Angela Finley Rose and Laura Blue Waters, would you please rise? Both of these individuals are filling 2 spots in the Hot Springs Arts Advisory Committee. So thank you very much for your service. Appreciate you. A number of those appointed are not here tonight, but I still want to recognize them within the Hot Springs Board of Adjustments / Board of Zoning Adjustments. Brian Gerke and Carol Caldwell, Hollingshead. On the Hot Springs Civil Service Commission, Sam Thakis. Sam's right here. Thank you, Sam. The Hot Springs Historic District Commission, James Gray has been appointed to that, so we want to thank James for his commitment and his service to the Historic Commission. And let's see, Mr. Charles Smith is Hot Springs Planning Commission. Is Charles here today?
No.
Okay, well he was here last week, and he's one of the one of the 5 people in the state that has a special designation for certification for being a planning commissioner. So we're happy to have him in Hot Springs and serving in that capacity. And then our last committee is the Hot Springs Transportation Advisory Committee, and we have Shannon McGuire here tonight. Thank you, Shannon. Short is also on that committee, and she couldn't be here tonight. So thank each and every one of you for stepping up. Well, we always have open slots on these boards and commissions and committees, and it's always nice to have good people stepping forward and serving the community. So thank you again. At this time, we have... Pardon?
Ma'am, did you have a question?
Well, I thought I was on the transportation committee. I got an email that said I was, so
Is that Linda?
I must be official.
Linda Short?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I called your name, but I didn't see you back there. Linda, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Okay, thank you for that clarification. We have 3 items under new business, and they're all ordinances. So at this time, we'll consider ordinance number 01821 and need a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
Got a motion by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Jones. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read by title only signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Council, please read ordinance by title.
Ordinance 01821, an ordinance accepting certain streets located in certain annexation areas for maintenance, renaming certain streets, amending ordinance numbers 4062 and 6117, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor, if you would. Entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Thank you. Motion to adopt?
I move for adoption.
Director Williams.
Second.
Seconded by Director Jones. And our staff member tonight is Denny McFate, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Board of Directors. On September 19, 2016, ordinance number 6121 annexing Enclave B was approved by the Board of Directors. By state law, acceptance of the streets in the annexed area requires a separate approval by the Board of Directors. The streets have been inspected, and some of the streets meet city specifications and some of the streets do not. Streets that were formerly maintained by the county are being recommended to you tonight to be maintained as city streets, and the streets formerly recognized by Garland County as private streets will remain private streets by approval of this ordinance. Ordinance number 4062 will need to be amended by the changing of the street description for Buena Vista Street. Buena Vista was brought in as a city street back in 1990 with the 911 addressing, and by amending that ordinance, we'd changed the description of the street length is basically what we're doing with that ordinance. The streets that I've listed below have a suffix ending in lane, LN, which is lane, and under current city street specification, lane is a street that is privately owned and maintained. There are some streets in the annexation area of A and B that are labeled lane that were previously under Garland County's maintenance jurisdiction. Even though they had the lane suffix, they were being maintained. By approving this ordinance, these lanes will be renamed streets with a suffix of street. In 2015, ordinance number 6117 accepted the streets for maintenance in Enclave A. 2 of the streets that I'm bringing before you tonight were still named laned, even though we approved that. But tonight, by approving tonight's ordinance, we will approve changing the following street names list from lane to streets, which would be Leroy Lane and Pinto Lane, which were part of annexation area A. They will become Leroy Street and Pinto Street. And the following new lanes that will become street suffixes is Tinker, Friar Tuck Lane, Pappy Hut Lane, Penrose Lane, Cali Lane, and Starcrest Lane. So therefore, staff is recommending also changing the suffixes from lane to streets. Any questions?
So,
Ma'am.
And for 911 purposes, all of this is handled by communications to dispatches.
Yes, ma'am.
That those have been changed, and the people living on the lanes that's now street, they know that if there's a 911 call, they don't say lane, they'll say street.
Yes, ma'am. That's being in the process of being redirected.
Thank you.
There were 40 streets, new streets total in this annexation that will go to be added to the master street index. Yes, sir.
so the only thing that really changes here is who's maintaining the streets.
Correct.
Okay.
Nothing changes as far as private or not private. Any other questions?
Thank you, Denny.
Thank you.
This time we'll hear from those in the public who have asked to speak to this item. And our first speaker, and only speaker as I see it here, is Mr. Driggers. Did you sign up for the street? Next item. Okay, I'll put you on the next item. You had me confused there. Okay, so is there any member of the public that would like to speak on the street issue? Accepting streets? Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Jones.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Folly.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. This time we'll consider ordinance number 01822, and I'd I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title.
So moved.
Second.
Director Foley, seconded by Director Garcia. So we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Please read by title.
Ordinance O-1822, an ordinance calling a special election in the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas for the question of issuing bonds under Amendment 62 to the Constitution of the state of Arkansas for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of capital improvements and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto. That concludes your reading by title. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt, Director Foley, seconded by
Second.
Director Garcia. Our speaker tonight is Mr. Steve Harrison, President of Visit Hot Springs. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. I'm here on behalf of the A&P Commission. At their the regular May meeting, they passed the resolution asking for a special election, which will be held on September 11th of this year, to do some capital improvements to the Mid-America Science Museum. The capital improvements are a $1.5 million exhibit hall, which is badly needed for them to stay competitive and to bring in incredible national exhibits that they can no longer do. And it's really not their fault. They've been so successful that they got the Reynolds grant several years ago, the $7 million grant, that they have all these great exhibits that they can't move around anymore to bring in remember the body exhibit from many years ago. So they need this exhibit space. We think it's very important to our community, not only to our children, but to the visitors that come in. They can have blockbuster exhibits every summer. So we're really excited about this. The commission has agreed to do this out of our budget, so there will not be any new taxes involved whatsoever. We just, due to the law, we have to come to the citizens and ask them for permission to use some of the money that we're already collecting to fund this capital project. The bond issue we're saying is $2 million. That's a cap. Hopefully it should come in about $1.75 million. It just depends what the markets are doing at that time. This process is a long process. We met in May. Hopefully the voters will see it our way, but it'll be, December until we'll possibly see the funding for this. So it's a process. We need to get it going so they don't miss a spring break, so they don't miss a summer without a place to have these special exhibits that will add economic dollars to our community. So once again, I think it's a great thing we've had all the school expansions. That's great. This is a great asset for those teachers. It's good for our children. I think it's really good for our community, and we think this is the right time to do this. We could have waited, but we need to strike while the iron's hot, and I tell you, they've got a great staff over there. Their board, they've been doing a great job. I remember, 20 years ago when I came here, the museum hadn't changed in the 20 years before. So it's made great steps, and this is just one more step that we really need to take. To talk about the expansion, this exhibit hall, why they need it, we have the executive director, Diane LaFollette, who I hope she stays for 100 years because she's a very important part of the museum and what they're doing. So she's going to explain it to you. She has a great PowerPoint. After that, we can take any questions you want to have about it, anything you need to know. So, Diane, it's all yours. Sell it.
100 years from now, I think I'll be pretty desiccated, so look at me now while you can. Hey. So I don't know if you believe it or not, but in next year, the Mid-America Science Museum is going to be 40 years old. So we're gearing up to celebrate our 40th anniversary next year. So overall, those years, that museum has had an incredible impact in the lives of our children and our families and our teachers. And like Steve was mentioning, we were so lucky to have a major grant given to us in 2014 and 15 so we could up our game and have some really cutting-edge exhibits. And we've been able to impact the children with higher quality educational experiences because of that renovation. And see if I can make this work. So a little bit of history for us is that we've had this, so we've been open for 40 years, and we're getting ready to always dream and see what we can do more and what we could do better for our kids in Hot Springs and in the surrounding area. We've always held to three important values that we hold near and dear to our hearts. And first and foremost is engaging kids in hands-on STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. And that is to get them excited about learning, excited about the joy of learning, but also excited about science and technology. And maybe one day they will do that when they grow up and become career people and stay in Arkansas and work. Another thing that we hold very dear is fostering family learning. We know that when families are involved in the learning of their students and their children, that the children do better in school, but they also do better in life as well. So that's a very important value for us. And then finally, we offer educational resources to teachers that they can use in the classroom and that parents that they can use at home. So in preparing for our 40th anniversary, we've been doing a little bit of research, and I like numbers, so I found some very interesting numbers here. Since 1979, we've served over 3 million kids and families at the museum. It's a pretty incredible number. Since the renovation in 2015, we've served over 51,000 students with educational programming at the museum. And now we average about 110,000 visitors per year at the museum every year. When you consider that we are in a city of 32 to 35,000 people, we call that a 300% capture rate. So they're obviously coming from someplace else. So we kind of know where they come from because we capture zip codes. So we know that they're coming from all over the country for sure, but primarily from Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Missouri, which you would expect. When we figure these people are coming in from out of town, they may or may not spend one night in a hotel. They will probably buy some food out into a restaurant. So when we can do a conservative estimate of what the economic impact of the museums to the city of Hot Springs is, we calculate a $14 million annual economic impact to Hot Springs. So we love our visitors, and that's way too little for me to read, but I think I can paraphrase. These are a couple of some of my favorite stories. We have lots of stories that people tell us that we love to hear. The first one, I think, is from a gentleman named Mark, and he left that on our Facebook page. And basically, I think he's from Hot Springs because he says this is one of the best science centers that he's seen and that he's ever been to, and that we're lucky to have it in Hot Springs. And he loves the exhibits. He loves the staff, which I can echo that as well. But he says, besides, who else has a Tesla coil, right? I mean, what's not to love? And then on the other one, Joseph left a comment on Facebook, on a TripAdvisor, and this gentleman was from California, and he had 4 kids that he brought with him, and he said he had been to every science center, every kids' activity in Southern California, and most of them in Northern California, and that Mid-America Science Museum was the best kids' activity or science museum that he had ever been to, and that he will go to Mid-America every time he comes back to Arkansas, which is kudos for us, and I really am happy to hear that. This chart, and I love charts too, as well as numbers, and what this does is this shows the attendance since we became a nonprofit in 2005. So between 2005 and 2013, you can see we average about 82,000 people per year. There is a peak in 2008, which is very curious. And when we look back in history, that's when we had the bodies exhibit that Steve was talking about earlier. That gave us about a 20 to 25% increase in attendance with that bodies exhibit alone. So we were impacting more kids just with that exhibit. And then what we do at the museum is we do ancillary programming with each of these exhibits so that we can take a deeper dive into the scientific content that these exhibits are displaying. And then in 2014, you see a dip, and that's when we closed for the renovation. But then notice in 2015 and beyond, we average about 110,000 visitors a year. So we've increased our impact thanks to that Reynolds Foundation renovation. But we need to continue to grow. We need to continue to keep impacting kids and students. And we're taking a lesson from the Bodies exhibit. We know that one way to do that is with these cutting-edge, latest technology type of exhibits where we can introduce children into things that they cannot get anywhere else in Arkansas. So we want to do that. We can't do that, like Steve was saying earlier, right now, because when we renovated the museum, that lower floor where we used to put exhibits, we have big pieces we can't move anymore. So we have the Digital Dome Theater, we have the big gyroid climbing structure, the big orange one in the middle, we have the steam engine, and we have the large Featherstone kite emmet machine. Those all can't move. Now, we can move the rest of them, but that doesn't leave us a whole lot of space. So in order to do what we need to do with these exhibits, we would like to build an addition to our museum. So this new exhibition gallery that we would like to build, we're looking at a 7,000 square foot building. 5,000 of that would be exhibit space. The rest of it would be storage and some other utilities that I'll show you in just a second. And what this would do is make the museum, the Mid-America Science Museum, the largest venue in the state for science exhibits. So we could get exhibits that we can't get anywhere else, which would not only be great for Hot Springs, but be great for the entire state, I believe. This gallery would be temperature and humidity controlled, so we can get precious artifacts that we can display and protect them, which is a requirement by many of these exhibit companies. And when we aren't doing this, doing exhibits in this building, we can do seminars, workshops, teacher professional development workshops. We can do after-school programming, which we're trying to launch next year. So this would be a multi-use facility that would be totally education-driven, and we can use it in many different ways. So some of the exhibits, I've been looking around at what we might be able to get, and these are just some ideas of what we could get for exhibits to put into the hall. And this one is Star Wars, The Power of the Costume. This is a Smithsonian exhibit, so we could get this because of our affiliation with the Smithsonian. But who doesn't love Star Wars, right? So we would love to have, the kids would love to come and see all the Star Wars costumes and the memorabilia and things that are in the exhibit. But the message of the exhibit is about design. So it's about taking an idea, going through the design process, and then coming out with the end product. And that is a great activity for building costumes, but it's also very integral to engineering and science as well. So it's a great cross-connection between the two disciplines. So this would be a great exhibit that we could get. Titanic, the artifact exhibition, is a very cool exhibit. It's been around a little while, but everywhere it goes, it draws crowds. And this has true artifacts from the dig site. So the things that they brought up from the ocean floor are in this exhibit. And it tells the stories of the people. It has a human connection and tells the stories of the people that were on the Titanic at that time. And also talks about archaeology and marine science, and is a very interesting and compelling exhibit. And then one more vendor has these that I just truly love, the Hall of Heroes. So you get to learn the science behind your favorite superhero, and you can also pretend that you're the superhero, and you can use lasers and robots to fight the evil villain, and kids would have a great time with that and also learn a lot about physics and science. And then the Animation Academy is a great connection between art and science as well, because we'd have kids that could draw their animations and bring them to life with a chroma key studio or 3D zoetropes or stop motion animation. So again, these are just some of the ideas, and it depends on what's available at the time when the gallery would open. But there's so many different ideas that we could capitalize on, and more ideas to do every year as the years go by. So this is the site plan to show you where we're thinking about having this. So this is the building from a bird's eye view. If you look on the right-hand side, that's the administration offices, the cafeteria, and the museum store in that building. You walk across the bridge, and you're over into the main gallery where we had the bodies exhibit last time. That little bump out at the top of the illustration is the cave. So if you know where the cave is, there's a set of doors right by the cave that are already existing. We would put the facility outside of those doors. So it'd be freestanding somewhat. It would have a sidewalk that would be open air. And then there's a little square of ground between the new building and the old building. And we turn that into a little garden, kind of an area where you can step out if you're doing a 2-day seminar and get a break and get some sunshine. So a closer look at the floor plan is you can see that we're looking at having 5,000 square feet of space. So we can have any kind of exhibit that we want in there. I've talked to several exhibit vendors, and they said 5,000 square feet is like the sweet spot for exhibits. It's not too big, it's not too small, and it would have a lot of content in an exhibit that size. We have some storage for crates when the exhibits come in. We also have a little prep kitchen, so when we have a meeting, we can have it catered. You see a portable stage there, so we have all the AV equipment in the budget with the chairs and the tables, so people can have meetings and we can have educational programming with high-tech equipment. And then this is a rendering that an architect did of what this thing might look like. You see the ceiling is pitched. We have a high side and a low side. The high side on the window wall is probably about 20 to 25 feet. We could also make this flat. So the more flexibility we can put into this building, the more different kinds of exhibits that we could have. So we could have 25 feet all the way around, and we could have some really incredible exhibits that are very tall. This is another view from the other side of from the west side of the addition, looking back towards the old building, the current building with a window wall, and what it might look like, and then a view from the garden area, looking back towards a new facility. So I'm not sure this is work. I have a video. Do you think that'll play? Can you make it play? There you go. Yeah. So that wooden-looking area where that lady is in the alcove that's currently existing. So she's getting ready to walk into the new building. So go ahead and hit that. And this is a rendering of what it might look like. The artist's conception is we have one exhibit in the middle, which is probably pretty unlikely, but it gives you an idea of what it would be like. The interior design has not been detailed designed, but we have these windows that would be great for meetings, but they're not great for exhibits. We like to control the light with exhibits, and so we would put blackout curtains or roll down curtains so that we can control that light and spotlight the exhibits according to how we want them emphasized. And then you can walk out and you can be in the garden area. Again, we could do some programming out there that correlates to the exhibit inside, or people could go out there and they could have a break, or we could do some activities outside in a teacher workshop. You could do some really fun things out there. So it just built a whole lot of flexibility into our already very beautiful natural setting. So that is it. That's what we would like to propose to do, and I don't know if we're ready for any questions.
Thank you. Director Garcia?
Yeah. Last week I had asked about the timing of the election. Bob Wright's not here tonight, but I understand that with the movement in interest rates and inflation, that waiting for election in November, the cost of those items would be greater than the cost of this separate election. So the net is, if the people approve this, is less by having it on 9/11.
That's definitely correct.
Okay.
And the cost of the election, the Advertising and Promotion Commission believes very strongly in this project. The museum has proved what they can do for our community. The A&P is going to pay for the cost of the special election. Once again, it's not a new tax. We're just asking the voters to give us permission to use some of the existing tax money to fund this worthy project. It's a 10-year bond. In 10 years, it goes away. It'll be paid off, and hopefully we can do something else at that point, and maybe there's, by that time, I don't know what Diane will have cooked up to do and to bring another 100,000 visitors in, whatever. But we'd ask that you approve this. Wish we could have done it earlier, but these things take time. Even now, it's an 8 months before we even get the money, and we've still got to work on design and all that. So that's, I wish we could have done this, months ago. But it is what it is. We need to get it done now so we don't lose.
Director Williams, did you have a question?
Well, he answered one of them, and then you may have, Steve, you may have said this in earlier remarks. What is the project cost again?
The bonds are up to $2 million. We think it's going to be about $1.75 million. As Director Garcia said, it just depends. With what's going on right now, who knows? It's all over the place. So I'm not sure when we finally get to the point they'll be selling the bonds, I believe, in like November. So between now and November, a lot can happen. But, we need $1.5 million to do the project, which equals out the last numbers they ran for me to about $1.75 million worth of bonds to get $1.5 million so the Mid-America Science Museum can build this facility.
Any other questions for Steve or Diane? Director Jones?
Mentioned working on something for after school next year. What are you offering?
So we're starting a pilot program with Hot Springs School District next year to test an after-school program. So yes, we are. And so we've been talking to Dr. Nahus about implementing that next fall.
Good. Badly needed.
Diane, not related to this project, but how's the dinosaur exhibits going?
They're roaringly good, Mayor.
Roaringly good.
Roaringly good.
You got anything special for the holiday season?
Oh, yes. We have.
Well, tell us.
Oh, no, I can't tell you yet.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a surprise.
All right. Well, you're going to have to pay attention and get out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one individual who is asked to speak on this issue. Mr. Bob Driggers, please come forward. Provide us your name and address and And
Bob
City Director.
Driggers, 3 Stone Gate. And you'll note that I signed up speaking for this evening for 2 reasons. One is the fact that you guys are allowing the people to vote for a change, unlike you did on annexation and property taxes, etc. And the second is the Mid-America Science Museum is an asset to the entire community, to the state. It's fantastic. And if we can help them, we need to do so. However, I would like to request this evening to both the city and the A&P, pursuant to FOIA requirements, I would like a copy of the financials of the A&P, including liquid assets. Because the $2 million or $1.75 million or whatever is not necessary to require a bond. We all know the purpose. We did the same thing back 10 or 12 years ago, $1.1 million to repair the heating air conditioning at the Mid-America Science Museum. And you'll recall the advertising at that time, it could fail tomorrow. It's 40 years old. One of the directors asked me to go look. It was 3 or 4 years old, modern. Had a turbine, cooling tower with a date stamped on it, still outside over there. You can go check it for yourself. So we were misled. The bottom line is that 1.1 million at that time and this bond this time is here for the purpose of encumbering the A&P tax, the 3% tax. Let's not fool the public. Let's be open, honest, and straightforward with them. That is the single reason for this tax. The A&P has probably 10 times enough money to pay for this cash. And once you send me the FOI, take a look at it yourselves. You don't need a bond issue. You just need to use some of the money on hand. And the public needs to know the real reason is to encumber the tax so it cannot be reduced for 10 years.
Thank you. Mr. Driggers was the only individual that signed up to speak. Was there somebody that wished to speak on this issue that might have failed to sign up? Okay. Discussion amongst directors? Any discussion? Director Foley?
I promised Mr. Driggers that every time he threw a number out that was misleading, I was going to challenge it. I will tell you, I've seen the A&P Commission financials. They do not have as much money as he just professed that they had. So,
thank you.
And you are on the
yes.
commission,
yes.
as is Director Jones, okay? And would you...
He's on the finance committee.
Yeah, okay.
Very good. If there's no further discussion, please call the roll.
Williams,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Our final action item of the evening is to consider ordinance number 01823. I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
That's a move.
Got a motion by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Jones. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approved. Council, please read by ordinance by title.
Ordinance 01823, an ordinance adopting the National Electrical Code, including Annex H, Administration and Enforcement, 2017 edition, amending ordinance number 6057, and for other purposes. That concludes reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion.
Thank you. Motion to adopt.
I'll make that motion.
Director Williams, seconded by Director Foley. And we have Mr. Mike Scott, Chief Building Official.
Thank you,
giving a
Mayor. Thank you,
report
Board.
today.
This is adoption of the 2017 National Electric Code. The state of Arkansas has already adopted this code, and it's important for us to stay current with the technical codes because of the ever-changing technology and construction materials. My staff and I have reviewed this document, and we recommend approval of this document.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Scott?
Just brief.
Director Garcia?
It looks like very, very minimal
Yes, ma'am.
change. I kept looking for, usually we see a lot more, but there was little in there, so
Right. The
it's
difference
just
between
very
the 14
minimum.
code and the 17 was very little.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Mr. Scott? If not, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
We had no members of the public sign up to speak to this issue. Was there anybody that wished to come up? None. Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garcia,
Aye.
Folly,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. That completes the action items for this evening. We are now under the Board of Directors' comments. Any comments from board members?
A question, and maybe we're going to, and we may have addressed this sometime back, but our next regular meeting would fall on July 3rd?
Correct.
And have we addressed that we're going to meet or not meet then? Did we decide that several months ago?
Yeah, you did. You said
Okay.
your schedule.
All right, good.
And what did we decide?
To meet on July the 3rd.
We're meeting on July 3rd.
We are meeting on July.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't want to interfere with my grilling, at Arlington Lawn on the 4th.
Be seasoning your.
I think the 5th might be the problem that we have after.
And I've been attending numerous festivals throughout the state, so.
All right, well, I'm sure we'll have a very efficient meeting, and we'll get out early, and you can begin your 4th of July
Yeah, you
right after the meeting, maybe like 7:45-ish.
Hold you to that, Mayor.
All right. Since there's no comments, we're going to have a motion to adjourn. Oh, Director Jones.
I move that we adjourn for the night.
Thank you for jumping in at the appropriate time. We got a motion. We need a second.
Second.
We got a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned. And be safe out there on your way home, please.
Yeah. Oh, the